Welcome back to the Media Bolt podcast, where we talk all things content creation. So no matter if you're shooting on your cell phone or making big budget videos on a cinema camera, we're here to provide you with practical knowledge for the next time that you press record. On today's episode, I've got an amazing guest. She's the owner of a video production company called Source 10 that specializes in English and Spanish videos and content. We have none other than Sandra Dempsey. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here. Super excited to be here, Justin. And an opportunity to talk about what we do and what we're so passionate about.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think you were one of those guests that we thought about early on. We were just like, the things you do and the things you're doing in the community with your work is really, really special. And also, there was a part of us as a production company, it's important to talk with other production companies and kind of extend the olive branch, as they say, and just, be inclusive and collaborative. And I think we've had that kind of relationship. We've had a lot of different discussions over the years, and we're just very happy to have you on today.
Thank you. And, my admiration to you guys. You do beautiful work. And as you say, talking, at this level of collaboration and just learning from each other, right? And at the end of the day, what we want to do is put great work out to the world. And when you get to talk to people who are doing the same thing, it's really a gift and also kind of like inspiring, right? I mean, because you're learning from someone. It's almost like seeing yourself in a mirror, right? I mean, seeing someone that is doing the great work like the one that you guys do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And likewise, you're killing it and doing a lot of great things. You're just in touch with so many different things in the community, the Hispanic community. And it's awesome to see a company that is the voice box for a community. And it's so important. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, Justin, I think the important thing is that that's who we are at the core. And that's how the company got started. Way back in 2018, I started this video blog about what is to be in Milwaukee, right? I understood at the moment that there wasn't enough good quality Spanish content for Latinos. And I also noticed that Latinos weren't being really invited to a lot of these great places and things in Milwaukee. So that's when I decided to create this video blog, which was like a local travel blog. And I found my passion, my love for video production, right? I realized, wow, I mean, this is really cool. You can do a lot of things, say a lot of things, show a lot of things, and everything was in Spanish. So it all started as a hobby, basically, where a partner who was the one who ran the camera, we both were also on camera personality, and then we went out there and we were filming ourselves and just doing our thing to really make Latinos feel welcome to those places, right? I mean, we did rock climbing, ice skating, state fair, Summerfest. Like we did all those cool things that happen in Milwaukee in Spanish because there really wasn't that kind of high quality content in Spanish for Latinos here in Milwaukee at the time.
That's great. And so let's start back a little bit. When did the creative bug start for you and you found yourself being in that kind of that niche?
I love it. I love that question because I think it started when I was a teenager, but then I decided to go into law school.
Okay. so kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of turned off that bug for whatever the reason was. And it all goes back to when I started working in the U.S. for the first time.
Okay.
I moved to the U.S. in 2002 due to marriage. And a couple of years later, I started working at ESPN Radio, the ESPN Deportes station. And once I was there and I was in communications, I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. You can be creative, right? I mean, I did some on-air stuff. I also was creating events for the station. So it was one of those, I started kind of getting to know my creative side again, right? Then I moved from ESPN Deportes to Telemundo, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And when I was at Telemundo, Wisconsin, the job was a little more sales. So I didn't have as much opportunity to be creative, which was good because I think I had a good taste of being creative at the radio station. So when I moved to Telemundo, that kind of gets a little turned off again. And I start missing it. And I'm like, I need to do something. And that's when I pick up the phone and I call my friend Michelle and I say, hey, let's do a TV show. And I'm like, well, we don't really need TV. We have YouTube. So let's just do that.
Let's do a YouTube show.
Let's do YouTube. And we brainstormed what should we do, and we ended up doing the travel blog. So.
And what year was that, the travel blog?
That was at the end of 2017. So we launched it in 2018. So that was the first blog I remember was February 4th of 2018. That's when we launched our first blog, which was rock climbing. And I think that's when I realized this is amazing. Just the fact that you can go and create something out of an idea, right? I mean, and video, I feel like it's just creating a legacy, right? I mean, it's
Exactly.
something that you create and lasts forever.
It's a timestamp in that moment,
Yes.
and it's gonna last long
Yep.
as the internet lasts.
Right. I'm like, I hope we never have like a blowout of, clouds and stuff because we'll be a little in trouble. But I feel like that's that moment when I realized that I wasn't being creative because my job wasn't allowing for that. I was like, okay, I need this again. And that's when I started doing it. And I remember just being creative, as we were producing the video vlogs, right? I mean, what are we talking about? What are we saying? How can we make it fun and engaging? And that's when I realized that this creative gene, right? I mean, was coming back again.
Ah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And during that moment, when I guess after the blogs, did Source 10 kind of become a thing and start to build? And Source 10 is your production company.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did that kind of happen?
As things happen in life, I always feel like there's cycles, right? And sometimes the cycles get close very naturally, and sometimes things happen and the cycle has to get close somehow. So interestingly, and it took me a year or two to recover and talk about this openly, but at Telemundo, Wisconsin, they fired me. And they decided to fire me because I was doing my video vlogs. They said that was a conflict of interest. So they let me go. And that was very surprising because I was like top 3 salesperson. Like, I was the only Latina selling Telemundo. So there were many reasons to really wonder, like, why did this happen?
Yeah, they should have kept you there. You're a great asset.
That's how I felt. And I'm like, why don't they instead use what I'm doing to leverage this for the station to generate more sales, right? Yeah. But long story short, I mean, they say there's a conflict of interest. This is it. So at that moment, I thought, well, what do I do now? And I just knew, like, I really didn't want to work for someone else. I think that was clear.
Yeah.
And, with my background, it was actually a little hard to find a job, like, because even if I went to marketing, well, English is not my first language, right? So to write content, well, English is not my first language. And I acknowledge that. And that was always something that I had in the back of my head. So I'm like, if I do something, it has to be something that I feel comfortable and really, really good at what I'm doing. And I knew this Spanish content creation was one area that I felt really comfortable based on the success that our video vlogs have had. So I was let go, and I think it took me like a month to kind of like recover from the moment emotionally. And then after that, I decided to start just reaching out to my connections and say, hey, I'm doing Hispanic marketing consulting, more like a marketing agency.
Yeah.
But then every time I talk to someone, the idea of video came up, right? Because now people have seen my videos. Again, it's a timestamp. It's something tangible, right? If I talk about Hispanic marketing consulting, it's like, okay, what is it, right? If I talk about, I can produce a video for you to reach Latinos and show your product or your service, that had a little more of something that you can touch and feel.
Yeah, it gave them something tangible to get out of the conversation.
Exactly. So it just kind of like start from there, like, one connection at a time. One say yes, the next say yes. And at that point, I decided, you know what? I can do this whole marketing thing, or I can just focus on video. And I just love video so much. It just came so natural to me. And I could see the results of video. Like, you can have all the marketing strategies, but it always ends up being a video. Right? So I decided to just stick to video. And that's when Source 10 was born. So Source 10 was born at the end of 2019, right before COVID.
Yeah.
I was just like getting like, okay, here we go. This is good. I'm getting one client here, another client here. And then March happened, and then it's like, okay, let's change gears here.
Let's pivot,
Yeah, and I had to pivot a little bit. At that point, it was just myself, and I was hiring freelancers to do the work. That's how we started. But then, so during COVID, I kind of like pivoted to my blogging, and I did something a little different because we couldn't be doing travel blogs because everything was closed.
Right.
But then I was doing a lot of health and wellness, Facebook Live. So did more than 100 Facebook Lives, all in Spanish. It just seemed like at the time, again, there wasn't enough content in Spanish about COVID locally.
Right.
So I made it, my job to really go and find out people who would be able to talk to us about COVID in a way that we could understand in Spanish, healers, doctors, psychotherapists. And that kind of like kept me going through the year of 2020.
Okay.
And then at the end, things start kind of like opening up.
Slowly coming back.
Yeah, if you remember that. And, my connections started reaching out, hey, could you do a video for this? And things kind of start picking up again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2021 when I hired my first team member, who is Jay, that you know really well, who is super talented, and we have worked together really, really well. I knew him from my video blogging time.
Okay.
He was a freelancer for us at the time also. Because, when Michelle and I started, it was everything like selfie mode. It was just him and me, and it was everything like selfie mode. And at some point, we're like, we should hire someone to come and film us. So, you get more depth and, wide angles and things like that.
Yeah.
And so he came on board. Mitchell happened to be classmates with Jay at MATC.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then he brought him in. He noticed that he was really talented, and we hit it off really well. And so far, so good. We're still together and working really, really well. So he's the first employee of Source 10. Now we have grown, but yeah, he was the first one.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think I can kind of relate to that. 2020 time was weird. I think we ended up doing some videos for people. We were just recording Zoom calls and putting pictures with it. And it was like, what can we make for our clients to just get us through this time? And we were I think lucky in a sense, because we started during the pandemic.
Okay, so you're
we were like September 2020.
Okay.
And I think you were a little bit before. So the pressure of it, we were starting at the ground zero, so we had nothing anyways at the beginning or whatnot. But it was kind of a good place to kind of start. Going through that was definitely tough. I think you guys came out of it much stronger and really built something really great. And I think the thing that I noticed is just the representation thing, right? You are an agency, a production company that's making these things and you have the voice of the people, and you can actually make stuff that relates. Can you just talk to me a little bit about like why that's so important to have proper representation from even the content creating standpoint? Because sometimes, and I don't know how like bigger places are like ESPN report this or whatnot, but having someone that is, you're born and raised that way, you can really express and connect on a different level.
Yeah. And, I think it's huge. And thank you for the question, because I feel like it starts when you start seeing things that are just literally translated from English to Spanish. Right. And me as a Latina and as a Spanish native speaker, I'm like, why didn't they just have someone look at it before they publish this? Right. I wouldn't say it's insulting, but it just hurts, because it's like, why didn't they take the time?
It's like an afterthought. They just...
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you want to talk to me. You want my business, right? You want me to learn about you, but you're not taking the time to really even understand me or know who I am. So for me to have that voice, I have becoming actually more and more vocal every time I can, because at first you have to be respectful, right, of people coming to you and asking, how can we be, authentic, and how can we... And, you give your advice, and sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. And I have learned to be like, okay, let's do it, but let's do it right, right? I mean, there is no like halfway in between. Like, I mean, it's either just go and do it, the wrong way, or come and do it the right way.
Right.
And I feel like just having that voice of, I understand my community because I'm one of them. I've been in this country enough to know that there is also many perspectives on the Latino life. Like the way I came is different than the way some other people came to this country. So I also understand that. So whenever I give advice or suggestions in how to approach our community, it relates in a way differently to me than it relates to another Latino, right? But even then, I try to have a very wide vision of what we all Latinos need at the core to be able to come up with messages that are much more encompassing of what our voice or our needs are, if that makes sense.
That definitely does. And also, you being a woman of color, has that been a challenge for you, or is that something that you've embraced? Because you elegantly like do that, and is that something that you think about a lot here in Milwaukee, or is it something that you're just like, nah, doesn't matter?
I love that question, because I almost had to pause in this question, because I feel like I could have seen my ethnicity and my being a woman as my weakness, and somehow turn that into my strength, right? Like, I come across as, because I know this market, I know I'm the one who can do it best. Right? So I would say that's the first one. Now, being a woman, I know I can bring a lot of intuition and sensitivity to the things that we do.
Yeah.
And I use that also as a way to combine that with my expertise in the market. And somehow I've been able to package them in a way that has become a strength.
Yeah.
And even in the video production industry, there is not a lot of women.
Right.
Right. I mean, so just starting there, and then Latinas, it's like, I don't know what percentage there is of Latinas being in video production, but I'm sure it's really low. And I'm one of them, right? And I wouldn't say that I got here by accident, but I almost did, right? I mean, I just trusted my intuition and my abilities and my talents and what made me feel great and my passion. And here we are. And I feel like being a woman of color in this industry, in some ways, has been, probably the biggest blessing.
That's super proud.
Yeah.
And it's funny, through the pandemic and coming out of, and the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was a time when business owners of color started getting, people were looking towards us. People were giving opportunities, and it might have been a perfect time, for this. And it's been a big change. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it'd have been a little harder for people like us that start businesses in a city. But it's been really cool to see a lot of support for companies like yourself. And I don't know, it's just been really exciting. Have you noticed that kind of thing from the community? A lot of support from the community to make sure like that you guys are thriving and getting those opportunities?
I think there's a couple of answers to that question. And one of them will be, I think we do bring a lot to the table, right, as diverse communities, right? Like in your case, like in my case, we bring a different perspective to things. So that's a win for the community and businesses and organizations. I still feel like they don't come and look at us because of our color. I feel like they still come at us because of the quality of the work that we produce. And you may relate to this, right? Yeah. I mean, the work you do is awesome. And I don't think they think who's behind the camera at the end of the day, right? Yeah. It's what am I getting if I come to MediaVault? Yeah. So I feel like even though, there is more awareness of the importance of supporting diverse businesses, I feel like there is also still ways to go as far as we still have to prove that we are the best that they can get.
Yeah, I've always looked at it as no matter what, I came from a baseball background, and being one of the only Black kids on my team, almost always, I always felt the need to have to approach it and be the best on the field so I could stand out instead of just being like everyone else, because I was already like different, I guess. So I think we have a long way to go, but like our children are living through the best time socially, you know what I mean? And I think having a company like this paves the way for other young women of color to, have an opportunity, or even say, oh, I can do that. And, that's what's really important sometimes, just being able to show someone else that that's possible. Because I grew up, I didn't see, we had Spike Lee, that's one of the big, Black directors, but I didn't see a lot of people in that space. There's so many more nowadays, and that representation is so important.
I think you're right. I feel like the fact that we're inspiring people of color like us to know that it's possible. And I think our job is to also talk about, you got to hustle, right? Yeah. It's not given to you because you are a person of color and because the community is supporting that. You still got to hustle and make sure that you do the best you can because that's who you are, right? It's just an extension of who you are, whatever we do. So I agree with you. I feel like we're paving the way, and I have seen change. Probably if I start my business 15 years ago, it would have been a different story. But I would say, to your point, I think COVID and the movement at that time really helped us to be more visible and for people to at least be more aware of the existence of diverse businesses that should be included, right?
Absolutely. You guys do, work with some really big clients in the city, some names that, you've worked with Summerfest and State Fair, making specific things for the Spanish-speaking community. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those projects? Because that's, I think, an easy thing for people to be like, oh, yeah, especially your community, be like, yeah, watch that. That's why we went, or something like that.
Right.
Can you talk about some of those clients you've worked with and how those projects have went?
Yeah, Justin, before I even answer that question specifically, I'm very proud to say that thanks to the service that we provide to produce content in Spanish, many companies have had their first Spanish content video out there, right? Talking to State Fair, I became the Spanish spokesperson for them even, right? So we have taken pictures for them. We have created video content. But for that, I think the biggest win was really being able to broadcast their message from Latinos to Latinos,
Yeah.
right? I mean, for that matter, I used my platform of like the video blogging, and we were able to really generate a lot of traction. You know, we were giving away tickets. So that was a much more intensive campaign with video content, as I said, photos as well, but also the personal touch to it, right? To invite people directly. And that was a phenomenal one. We have been able to, for example, another big brand and a project that I'm really proud of is something we did with the Make a Culture Wisconsin Cancer Center. So through COVID, again, they were having issues like how do we reach out to people because they were always doing community events. So Raul, who works there and is a dear friend of mine, he was in the community outreach department of the cancer center, and he said, let's just produce videos. So we produced a series of videos on different topics, all in Spanish. We did Facebook Live, so it was a very comprehensive campaign. And I would say the first time ever, right, the cancer center create content of this quality to talk to Latinos. So that's another project that I'm really, really proud of. Recently, we're working with Travel Wisconsin, right? I mean, I've been talking to him for a long time, like, we need to create content in Spanish. Like, I mean, come on, I come from this travel blog idea. We gotta do something.
Yeah.
And they're taking a step, and next year there'll be some Spanish content as well,
That's
right?
so awesome.
So I think just the fact that those companies also feel comfortable trusting their brand, right? Because once you develop the content, not everyone understands what we're saying, right? So they want to really make sure that the brand is put in good hands and that we're going to do the right job for them as far as keeping the brand and communicating the message that they want to communicate to our community.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's so important. It's so just like awesome that you guys are doing that and like succeeding in that. You found a niche. I guess it is a niche that you're able to work with, but it's so empowering for what that is, you know?
It is. Because I feel like, you're really including the community. And I feel like that is probably the biggest win that we have had. And when I think back in time, when I started my video blogging, that's what it was all about. I was like, I know this seems like it's just fun and we're doing all this crazy fun stuff, right? I mean, jumping around, laser tag, all that stuff. But I knew the moment these businesses realized that Latinos can come to their businesses, bring business, right? They will be able to really understand that there is a community that exists in the area that will be loyal customers that they're not talking
to. That they're missing out on.
They're missing out. So I think that was the deep meaning of that video blog was to really make sure that we were able to create a more inclusive community in the business world in Milwaukee.
That makes sense. And you've created a amazing team around you. Source 10's got, you guys, how many employees now? 6 or 7?
So we're about 7.
7. Yeah. And I've just seen kind of how that's kind of grown, and that's been, I think it makes things a lot, there's more going on obviously there, but as a business owner, how are you dealing with managing people and that kind of side of it? Because that is something I'm interested in, because it's something that we kind of have to deal with too.
Right. I mean, and growing, I think one of the biggest assets that we have is that we are very open as far as communicating. So it's always like an open door policy kind of thing. Like we're always talking among each other. We'll try to be included in the projects as much as we can. And, we serve the English and the Spanish market. So we also have to have a specific workflow for that.
Okay.
We recently added Giselle, who is also Latina. So she helps big deal and big time with all our clients who need the Latino content. But I will say it's just communication. We are constantly talking to each other. We work virtually. But then, as you know, right, when we're on set, we're together for a full day, right? I mean, from sunrise to sunset. So that brings us together consistently. And I feel like the big advantage that we have as a production team, as working together with your partner as well, like you build that connection that when you're on set, people can perceive that, right?
Yeah.
We're just not building a team, to do something. We are a team that we work together, all year round. So we know each other, not just at the professional level, but also as the personal level, because there are always jokes, right? We're always talking about family, what's going on in your life. So just being, I just want the environment to be as friendly as possible and just being open and direct. I will say that has been probably the biggest challenge as a business owner, right? Because sometimes you want to say things and you're like, well, I just hope I don't hurt anybody, right? Yeah. So just having that courage to be open and say things as they are and call them by its name. And I feel like that has given everyone the opportunity to act the same.
Yeah.
So we call things by our
Starts
name.
at the top, right?
Exactly. And everybody feels free to, if someone, didn't do something or if something didn't go the way we expected, we talk about it. And we treat it as a situation that we all need to fix, right? It doesn't become my problem or his problem. It's like, okay, how can we fix this? Always looking for improvement. Like we always have like the brief meetings. We talk about wins and challenges. So I think we have created a really, really good culture. And I think it has to do with just staying in communication all the time, consistently, for the good and the bad. And I'm very fortunate to say like it's mostly good, but then, you may have a situation, but that has to be addressed as well as the good one, right? I mean, not letting those bumps, hide them under the rug.
Until you have a blow up later on.
Exactly.
I think that's awesome because you create a inclusive environment where everyone feels heard. And I think that goes a long way, not only creatively to, I having this idea, but also like, just the day to day. Because sometimes those things, I think as a business owner, you are so focused on the business first and then sometimes the creative that could be a situation where you might be missing something that someone else might have more expertise in. And it's always important to hear those things.
Yes, I love it. You describe it perfectly. I think just having everyone feel heard. And that has been even like brought up by clients of us when we're on set and, there is no egos. We're just trying to get the best result for everything, right? So they have mentioned like, wow, you guys really work like a team. Like, it's not like someone has a good idea, but someone has a better idea. Let's go with that one, right? We're just not going to stick into like, well, it was my idea. Like, no, it's just collaboration and making sure that we get the best of the best for our clients.
For sure. And then the other thing is like collaboration. In our environment, I always tell people like, I come from an athletic background where it's about the team. It's about the team. It's about the community. And I think here you sometimes may see pockets of people not sharing as much. And I think it was really cool to have you on to show the world like video production companies aren't at odds with each other. What's for us is for us. What's for you is for you. There may be opportunities which we've discussed in the past, like where we can help each other in those regards. And I just think I'm really grateful that you came on and talked because this is like a really cool thing to like to have this conversation, I guess.
I agree. And I feel like when you called me and asked me like, oh, for sure, I have seen already your posts and I saw you had Carlo, who I used to work with too in the past as a freelancer. Yeah, great guy, super talented. And I was super excited because I agree. Like, I feel like we are mature enough, right? I mean, to have these conversations about, can we collaborate on something? Or, I respect and adore and admire your work, right? And I just been able to,
likewise,
to hear that one from someone who is in the same industry as I said at the beginning of the podcast today. It's a treat. And creating this space where we actually in person are talking about, the business, it to me just makes me happy and it gives me so much joy and seeing your face and being here and knowing that this content can help other creators, right? I mean, that you're putting together, again, because we are trying to collaborate at a different level with them, right? By us sharing our experiences, we're trying to give our creators, right? I mean, ideas and it's not advice. It's just, sharing our own story. There is so much learning in there.
And it's not often you get to hear the perspective of someone that owns a business, that owns a creative business, talk on that. And I think this has been a really great conversation because, for me and Eric, we're creatives at heart to start, not business people. So sometimes we've learned a lot over the years of being business people and what it is to own a business and operate a business. So it's really cool. Anytime I get to talk to someone that's in my position or in another type of field that owns a business, I'm always picking their brain. What's a tip you would give to someone wanting to start their own business in video production, let's say? Like, where do you start? Because there's really two routes. There's I'm going to be a freelancer or I'm going to own a production company. I think most people start in the I'm going to be a freelancer. And then kind of potentially cross over.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like when I started, I was a freelancer, right? I mean, I was just, self-hiring freelancers and doing it. In some ways, it was a lot easier because, you don't have like, okay, I have to bring this amount of money every month, right? I mean, to pay everyone and the subscriptions to all these platforms and, equipment and insurance and payroll and taxes. I mean, you still have to pay taxes when you're a freelancer. But it's just a different scale, right? I mean, like now our team, we have the admin person, we have the accountant, we have the taxes. Like it's just, all these people. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody because I just talk to everybody all day. But to your point, I think the advice will be really know what you want in your life.
Yeah.
I think the more clear you are in what you want for your life, it'll be easier to make a decision if the freelancing position is better than the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a freelancer, you have less stress. You still have to hustle because you still gotta, provide for yourself. When you have a business, the hustle is, exponentially
It's
bigger.
definitely different. Yeah,
Right.
it's a much different thing.
Yeah.
I always did filmmaking stuff on the side of my day job, and then the business owning thing came soon after that for a various amount of reasons we won't get into. But like, it was something I wasn't really prepared for, but always knew I wanted to do. And
Uh-huh.
the stars aligned and everything kind of happened. But it's definitely, I don't know. I love it because I just love the thrill of it and all of that comes with it. I love being able to, me and Dids can make snap decisions and make things happen, and that's really really awesome. I've worked for people before, and my ideas always felt like it took a while for them to trickle up, or maybe I didn't get to really realize. So I always did things on the side so I could realize whatever ideas I had. So owning a production company made sense for me, but may not make sense for everyone. Are there any tips you would give someone to basically managing others and making sure that, you know, the environment continues? Because you got a great ecosystem with Source 10.
That's a good question. Well, when I have interviewed people to join the team, like after a conversation, I know, and I say this is one of us or it's not.
You know.
Right? I mean, there should be so much alignment in the values that you cherish and you live by that I feel like the skills are super important, and we have been really lucky to have people that have both.
Yeah.
The values and the skills, and I'm so fortunate. But I feel like leading by example and just being genuine can attract the people that are going to
Right.
be like you, right? I mean, I have interviewed a lot of people. I mean, like the people that we have somehow have just come.
Yeah.
But I feel like they have an interest in the work that I do and the way I carry myself in life professionally. And that has been attracting to the people who
The right
are
people.
alike.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Like you put it out there what you are as a person and what you guys are as a company. So
Yeah.
the people that want those jobs are already like probably chomping at the bit because that's the type of, heart moral compass they have. I guess.
Yes. Like they already have the standards that you have because they're being attracted by that. So probably the advice will be when you put yourself out there, right, in social media. That's the way you put yourself out there. Just be genuine and be smart about it, right? I mean, portray the values that you live by. Like LinkedIn, I just use that platform like consistently, and I don't talk about business as much, right? I mean, I'm talking about why I support the community, why I do the work that I do, right? I mean, I even talk about things about my kids sometimes, like
Right.
a few times. But what I'm trying to say is like, I'm just being as genuine as it could be for people to really get to know me and feel that I may be the person that they would like to work with.
Yeah. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you, there was a project that you got to work on last year. We talked a little bit about off camera where you got to do some dancing and some cool things. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that was a big moment for you and your company?
Thank you. I was talking about that today, that I have a lot of highlights in my life. And this particular event that I just participated on is one of those. So Cristo Rey is a Jesuit school in the south side of Milwaukee, serving mostly Latino students, and they have a very interesting work-study program where the kids get to go to corporations as interns through their high school. They go a full day of school every week. They go to work at a corporation. So I think that's genius.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. I just saw these kids. I mean, you see them, and they look like college kids. Like the way they carry themselves, they have so much confidence.
They got
now.
that experience by being out there.
Yeah, I mean, they're already talking to adults all the time in a work environment, which is not easy, right?
Yeah.
So when they have a fundraiser every year where people from the community go and dance and perform in front of 500 people, and then you have a fundraising goal to raise X amount of money. So they asked me to do this fundraising for them and be a dancer. And I'm Latina, but I'm not your typical Latina that dances salsa and bachata. Like, I'm not that Latina. I always say I like to dance techno and pop music. You know, there's not much for techno. You just jump.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's not much technique to that. And I have always been terrified to learn a choreography. I don't think learning a choreography has ever been in my blood. So when they ask me, I say no. And I felt really bad because as we were talking, right, I love to help my community. And I knew the cause for this is like amazing, right? Those kids can get, you know, to keep going to school. And so I remember leaving that room feeling really like sad that I say no. Later on, I ran into a friend who actually did it like a few years before. And he's like, Sandra, you gotta do this. You can do this. We can help you to raise the money too. Like, just go and do it. And the kids will appreciate it. They want to see a Latina dancing, like they are Latino. Like, he gave me all the selling points to say yes.
Say yes, yeah.
So like, let me think about it. And I came back the next day and say, okay, I'll do it.
Let's do it.
I'll do it.
That's
I
awesome.
was terrified.
Oh my God.
I post a lot of stories. Like, I even got a speeding ticket on my way to my first class because I was so stressed and so nervous and anxious. Like, it was stressful. So I showed up to my first lesson. It went okay. You know, the power of video, Justine, like, I film a lot of my stuff, you know, just with my cell phone. And going back and looking at those moments is like incredible, right? I mean, I recreate the story every time I go back into my stories. And it just, you know, that timestamp that you talked about.
That,
yeah, exactly. You relive that. You can see my face. I was terrified.
Because you know how you felt there, but then you look at it and you're like, oh, this is like, because I looked at, I would have never known you didn't ever dance and have that background.
Exactly.
I literally, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, dang, that's
He's
pretty
a good
legit.
dancer.
Yeah, that was legit.
Pretty legit.
Yeah, that was legit because I got two left feet over here. I don't dance.
So through that process, basically, it was a series of classes, plenty. I decided the only way I'm going to feel confident the day of the event is if I over-prepare myself. So I trained as much as I could. I went to as many classes I could. In between meetings, you know, as a business owner, you just have to feed them like whatever you can. So
Random
I did
11 a.m.
Yeah,
dance
exactly.
class or something. Like.
Exactly. But then you're working at midnight because you do the class because that was the only time that they had open. So that was a different story, but I made work. An interesting thing as a business owner, you're always making decisions, kind of like what you say, right? I mean, you and Eric can just say, we want this, and that's what you get done.
Yeah.
Here, you come to that studio and they tell you, here, you follow. And I was like, oh, and that's a problem.
You got to humble yourself and step back. And
that was probably the biggest lesson in life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just stepping back and being like, okay, someone can lead me through this process. They're the experts. They know how to do it. And seeing the result, as you say, you watch that video and you will never know that I was amateur, like dancing my first choreographed dance in my entire life.
Crazy.
It was beautiful. They picked the dress, the makeup, the hair, the choreography, and I just follow.
You killed it. You killed
I
it.
did.
That was awesome.
It was awesome. And you know, like, one of the learning experiences too is like sometimes you wish all your clients will let you lead them, right? Because as a creatives, we want to tell them how to do it. We can do it a little bit this way.
Yeah.
But you know, but they still want things a little bit in the box sometimes, right? So for us to convince people that we know this, you know, sometimes it takes time, right? I mean, as a business owner, as a creative mostly, can be a little frustrating.
Right.
So I was like, you know, I'm going to bring this example to all my clients. Like, you know, you let the experts lead you.
Let me lead you in a dance, a video production.
I think that should be our tag now.
That's it. I like that. I like that. That's so cool. That's so cool. As a CEO, how do you craft your vision and put that into action? Because it all comes from here. You know, how do you get that out to the team? Because I think there's a lot of people that can take things in their head but don't know what to do with it and can visualize and do all that. But there's really that actionable step that has to happen. What is your thought process on that? And what are some ways that you get it out and get it to the team?
Justin, you should have not asked me that question. You know, and the reason I say that, I have felt so fortunate that everything that has happened to Source 10 has been the product of love and passion and has happened very organically. If you were to ask me 5 years ago, you will have a video production company, I'll be like, what are you talking about? Like, really? Like, it would have never been in my wildest dreams an idea. So I think the opposite to most business owners, I'm one of those that really lives by the day. Yes, I do think about the future. What is the future of video these days, right?
Yeah.
For example, and I know you probably are having those same conversations, right? I mean, where do we stand with all this AI and all these things? Like, what is the evolution of video? However, I feel like sometimes we can get way too distracted on that rather than taking care of what we have in front of us. And I'm a believer that taking care of today is going to help you take care of tomorrow in some ways, right? Because we have built Source 10, one client at a time, one good project leads to the next good project.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we have enjoyed that way. And I don't sit down and try to come up with a huge vision. Like, I'm just living life one day at a time.
I love that. I love that. Living in the moment and making the best of that moment and not being distracted.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And I think that's something that lends to having high level quality content like you guys do, because you are just focused on that, knocking it out, doing it the best you can, instead of, sometimes it can get hard when you're like trying to do too many things down the road and be a visionary. And I know we get sometimes lost in that because we're trying to iterate on new things. Like the podcast, for instance, we had been talking about for like 2 years, a year and a half. And we finally did it, a couple months ago. But now we're in that moment, and it does feel good. And now we kind of know where we're aligned,
Right. But I think those breaks are actually, they nurture you because they're still creative, right? You're connecting with people. So those, I feel like, are important to have actually.
Yeah.
Rather than just, like hyper-focus. Like right now we have been hyper-focused, but I'm missing a little bit of that you're just talking about when creating your podcast, right? Like I started as a video blogger and I haven't had much time to do that now. So it's like, when can I fit that in? And I'm like, well, I think I found dancing now. So maybe I don't need,
maybe now you got the dancing vlog that might come out.
I think maybe.
The tutorials, you can do tutorials.
I'm still a beginner. Like I say, the fact that I learned a choreography doesn't mean I'm a dancer, like I had a good teacher. But I feel like, that living in the moment. And as I say, probably business coaches will be like, no, you need to have your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan. And, at some point I'll get to it. I feel like the start of a company, they say the first 5 years are crucial. And you are so deep in and you are so hands-on and, then you start growing the team. So there's always something as a business owner, right? When you feel like, we're here, like, no. That was like a video game, level 1, go for level 2 and then you get to level 2 and you have to figure out the level 2, right?
And you realize there's like 99 levels and you're just getting going.
99 plus, that's exactly it.
For sure. Can you let people know where they can find Source 10 or get in touch with you if they have video production needs that fit your niche? Like, is there, can you just let the crowd know?
Well, we're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and in our website. So LinkedIn as well, source10.com. That's where they can find us. And if people really want to reach the Latino community, I always say we're the best ones to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
As a matter of fact, I just met with someone yesterday and she was saying, finally, I found someone who understands what we're trying to do, right? And if you don't talk to the right person that understands the market, they may not be able to get you what you want. So in that regard, I feel like I have this expertise of being the content strategist, and then I have the team where we together can put together the vision to give them the product that is going to generate results for them.
Yeah, we've had to do a couple projects where, hey, can we get that a Spanish subtitles version? And playing baseball, my limited Spanish, I do know it enough to know if it's right, but not grammatically correct, if it's saying the right thing. So we've had to do that. You're a great asset that we can lean on maybe in the future, so I don't have to sit in there and guess anymore.
And just a quick review of like the subtitles. And sometimes, I think AI and, all the systems that are out there.
I still don't trust it though.
Right, like they have gotten better, but they're still not quite there.
It's not quite there.
You still need a human eye to just give you the last, the final check mark.
The nuance. Because I know with like translations and things, it might translate in for, Mexican group, but it may not work for a Dominican group, or vice versa. Like in baseball, for instance, I learned how to speak Spanish hanging out with the Dominicans. And it's very different than like a Spanish speaking person from Mexico
Yeah.
or for, Chile or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always those nuances that, a true Spanish speaking person like yourself would know and be able to like understand. And I think that sometimes that gets lost a lot with people that don't necessarily know.
Right. And I think the other layer to that is always try to find someone who is a native speaker too. Right? Like if you give that video with the subtitles to my kids, they speak Spanish, but they were born here. So their Spanish is not like my Spanish, right? I mean, I was born in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico. So my Spanish is my first language.
Yeah.
For my kids, yes, I'm their mom. We speak Spanish, but it's not their first language. So just making sure that you want that content out there to be so polished, right? So just make sure that you have that native speaker being the one who gives you the last, check mark. And, I have found this out too, like translations can be so complicated, right?
Yeah.
I translate things one way, even in my own team. Michelle translates them differently than I do, right? And then you give it to the client, and then the client has someone internally who speaks Spanish, and they think like what you translate wasn't right. But again, it's not so much about, it's all the nuances and it's styles of writing and reading and speaking, and that kind of shows in a translation. So sometimes translation could be, it's one of those like people think, oh, just translate it. I'm like, there's like 10,000 ways to translate.
Yeah. It's like I always say, wow, that's so dope. And somebody like, if I was like in another country, they'd be like, well, that's not a good thing. Like, what are you saying? You know what I mean? So there's so many different slangs and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. What's next for Source 10? I know you like to live in the moment, but what are some things you have on the horizon you're looking forward to or hoping to achieve going forward?
I think all as a team are looking forward to make the business better.
Yeah.
When you have a bigger team, and video production is very labor intensive. I always say there's no shortcuts to video production, right? You pre-production, you're filming there, you're editing, revisions. Like it's just, you cannot skip any of those steps.
No.
So we, frankly, this is not as romantic as it could sound, but we really want to make sure that all next year we hyper-focus on making our workflow so smooth that we can be more efficient with our time. We are dedicated people. We spend a lot of time making things just as good as we can. However, I feel like we take a lot of our personal time just getting those things done that way. And I feel like as a business owner, you always have to be looking for those inefficiencies and where you can do better. What systems can you put in place? What, standardizing some things without losing the personal touch, right? So it's all these fine lines. You're always like a little bit too much, no, a little bit too much. Like, so it's just like that dance, right? I mean, every single day. So I feel like all the team is really looking forward for that. Like, I feel like if we're able to accomplish that, we'll have more time to do some other projects that are more like fun projects, right? I mean, or dedicate more time to some projects that sometimes, we just are spending too much time in like the logistics of it.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I just want to tell you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. This is really awesome. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us a little bit about owning a video production company.
Thank you. It was a treat. And I just, I really hope we can collaborate sometime soon.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just do something, like I feel like as creatives, like let's do something for fun. We don't have to have a client in the middle. Like let's just do something that we bring all the minds together and just do something that, I'm thinking next year is a big year for Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Milwaukee's every time in the spotlight. Like, how can we do, like, we all can do something,
right?
But to put Milwaukee more in the spotlight, that could be fun. And so I really hope that we can have a serious conversation about that when our schedules allow for that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much, Justin and Eric. And, it's beautiful to be here. Thank you so much. And I wish you the best and just keep up with the amazing work. Please just, keep putting beautiful work out to the world. That's a treat for everybody.
Absolutely. Always focus on quality. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No matter where you're watching this podcast or listening, do us a favor, smack that like button, subscribe, share this podcast to help somebody else that might be looking to own their own production company one day. And until next time, peace.